The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.
Win. Do you go for the thing you know the best, or do you go to the thing your opponent knows the least?
You're talking Magnus, right? Knows the least.
Knows the least.
The guy knows more about chess than everybody else on the planet. Gukesh is going to have to go with what works best for him, where he feels most comfortable. And Magnus could switch up and play literally anything.
Philidor, Perk,
you name it.
Sicilian, Berlin. I mean, he's all over the map.
It's impossible to guess what he might play, although E5 has been standard for him in this event so far. Note, Magnus wants no draw. I mean, he knows.
No Berlin.
Right, no Berlin on the board. He wants to keep this game going. Outplay me, young man, is what Magnus is thinking. And let's see what happens on a toe-to-toe battle.
And I was about to say, if you're ever going to play the best chess of your life, today is the day to do it. The last day with 3 points up for grabs on each and every game. This is the time that you really want to bring your best. By the way, D2, D3. This move has been kind of, much to my great surprise, everybody used to play C2, C3 in those positions and do an anti-martial, if you will. But these days, I'm really amazed to see that D2, D3 has become a top move at the very highest levels, and Rook E1. So we have a very typical, if you want to say, Ruy Lopez, and we're so happy that spectators are being allowed into the playing hall, but at the same time, they bring a lot of noise. You gotta warn them, making sure nobody brings any devices.
Sure, but these guys are starting to get used to that in their careers. They've played a number of events with crowds and increasing noise.
Absolutely. C2, C3 on the board. That basically sidesteps an issue of knight A5 when the bishop has no convenient retreat. Bishop B7. I'm expecting knight D2 in this moment. All very, very standard. The idea here is to shift the knight to the G3 square before undergoing central expansion.
And Magnus, of course, has played these positions hundreds, if not thousands of times when you add in blitz and rapid. So his experience level in this is just
off the chart.
Ginormous. And he will be playing with subtlety, knowing exactly how to defend. The youngster, he is the world he's the world champion.
World champion.
He's not the world number one. He's the world champion and looking to rise as he's been playing very well of late, coming off the European Cup tournament.
Double gold medal.
Double gold medal. So he is definitely someone who has a touch on the field himself. But Magnus was playing chess before this young man was born.
I was going to say that Magnus is following, remember his world championship match with Nepo. He was putting his bishop on F8, playing for these immediate D6, D5 type of breaks, and making draws easily as black, I might add.
It actually just occurred to me, Magnus was a GM before Gukesh was even born.
Wow.
Right? Because they're separated by 14 years between them. So Magnus was already a GM. And in fact, almost all these players were GMs before Gukesh was born. Now that I'm put into math.
But that's one of the uniquely incredible things about chess.
Isn't it wild?
Are you trying to send me a subliminal message over here? Because before Magnus was born.
That's why we're not playing. One of the many reasons. But.
Well, still within theory to a degree here, though we are losing the games in our database, so making our way towards a novelty, seeing or waiting to see how maybe Gukesh can throw a curveball towards Magnus Carlsen and get 3 points onto the board. I think it might be wise for us to zoom out to that 2 board yet. We haven't yet gotten an opportunity to look in on Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura, but of course this is the matchup that we'll have a magnifying glass on through the early portions of the day. Over on the left-hand side, it's Hikaru Nakamura and Fabiano Caruana. Right-hand side is Magnus versus Gukesh.
And unfortunately, the picture on the right is not the updated one.
Right. That's not the board as it stands right now, although the one they're working on it. The current one on the left should be on the right. We'll get there, and I think we're still a little bit off. But the one on the left is correct. Bishop h6 just played offering a trade of that strong bishop on the g7 square. It's sort of a Maroczy bind type position. With the pawn on c6, black will be able to look for some kind of central break soon. So that game looks fairly balanced. In fact, the more I look at it, the more it doesn't look like white has too much. Yes.
No.
That game between Nakamura.
I like the way you said bishop h6, offering exchange of bishops. In my day, we used to say forcing that bishop off the board. That's a very nice. I'm going to say no. I like the Gukesh game for a moment, if you don't mind. It's just Magnus has many different. Black side of the Ruy Lopez in his repertoire. The Breyer variation where the knight drops back to from c6 to b8 to d7 has been a long part of his repertoire with the black pieces. I'm talking about Magnus. And here it looks a little bit like a Breyer. Now, what this move queen c8 does is it starts to look at the Kingside, pardon me, the g4 square, the f5 square. It tries to discourage the move knight f5. For example, if you play the move knight f5 here, now that the queen is lined up, I can play moves like d5 and to try to trick you with a move like e4, and that knight gets undermined. Now, from Gukesh's point of view, he's done everything great. I mean, everything is great. He just wants to continue to increase what he believes is an advantage in the center. He's got more central control. So I really like a move like h2, h3, bishop d2, slow but purposeful moves.
He's played the move d5, however,
wow,
and transformed the structure dramatically, allowing this break with the move c6. This will be the main reason why you don't play d5 unless you know what your exact follow-up will be, because this move gives black counterplay in the center of the board.
Exactly. You get to hit d5. Now, the question is, can I undermine this knight somehow with a move like bishop e3 or rook b1? I'd love to force the knight to go back before I play the move c4. If I have to play the move c3, c4 at once, bishop a6 is annoying.
I'll tell you what I love, irrespective of the position on the board, is that Gukesh is playing to one of his own self-criticisms in his interview just yesterday.
What did he say?
Poor time control. He said, I got to play faster. I got to play faster. I wasn't playing fast enough. And look at this. I mean, now taking a bit of a time to think, maybe about how he wants to deal with, say, that knight or the provocation of this pawn push. But either way, he sits with a minute-and-a-half advantage over Magnus Carlsen right now. And that's what you want to see. Somebody who's taken that self-criticism and actually bringing it into play in game one on the next day.
Now, the move you want to play, as he did bring the bishop to attack the knight, the move you actually want to play, and whoa, I'm seeing a double question mark
on this bishop move.
On the board. No, c takes d5 being the move. Is that true? Is a fork happening on e4?
C takes d5, bishop takes. You got no choice. Takes on e4.
Is it a queen c6 tempo at the end?
Queen c6.
Knight takes. Knight takes. Keep going.
I've got to take with the rook. He didn't do it. Or did he? No, he didn't do it. Sorry, Maurice.
Magnus missed that opportunity.
It was a huge miss, actually, because he played very quickly. He trusted Gukesh. He played very quickly knight to d7, c4, bishop a6. Now, the position's fine. I mean, White's, again, is enjoying his extra space. But we think that knight takes c6 takes d5. With that move, Magnus might have been winning material. Takes. You got to take, right? Got to take. I have to take with the rook. Because if I take with the bishop, this is what you were saying. There's a queen c6 double attack. Oops.
Even queen b7 works in that position.
As well. Same situation. We're hitting the bishop. So this would have lost material for white, and that would have meant that after knight takes, rook takes. There is an f5 followed by e4. No, I've got... Boy, okay. Maybe
any help in this.
Maybe Magnus was right. He did it.
No, you should take with the bishop on e4, not the knight. Bishop takes on e4.
And then
if you play rook takes, you can play queen c6 in that position.
Gotcha.
Doing the exact same fork.
So there was a
clear win for Magnus that he
missed opportunity.
He just didn't realize the tactic existed, and now we have
queen
a position of relative balance, but not a position I think that Gukesh will be too happy with, because he did allow Magnus to get that counterplay against his central pawns, and it could have ended in disaster if Magnus had found the right moves, but Magnus missed it. Now still, the space that white usually is expecting to get, calm the center down so that he can attack on the other side, that's gone.
That's gone.
That's gone, and it's pure counterplay that black is playing with now, is white center is being mercilessly aggressed in this position.
Well, knight c5 was hitting this bishop on d3, which was protecting pawn on c4. There was no question. Gukesh had to capture, but at the same time, he got the benefit of doubling Magnus's pawns. Now, from Magnus's point of view, he says, I've got easy play. What's the problem? I want to bring my rook to b4. I'll be squaring up against the pawn on a4, the pawn on c4. Now, if I'm Gukesh, I'm thinking, okay, the grandmaster trade, as Jeremy Silman would call it. I've got to play on the light squares. You've got a dark square bishop, so I've got to play on the light squares. And I'm thinking that Gukesh is going to want to bring his knight to the c3 square so that he could aggress either the d5 or b5, rook b4 as expected.
In the meantime, Magnus is saying, look at my rook posting up very powerfully on the b4 square. You cannot chase it that easily. And he does have central play. He does have a ton of central play, as now Gukesh has gone into all defense mode in this position. Magnus, not only that, in terms of the central play, this pawn being able to take at any time, undoubling his pawns. Which one are you going to take with? If you take with this one, then this one becomes a runaway pawn, this E pawn. So that's a problem. If you take with this one, then it's the C pawn that could be a problem. So Magnus can time this capture at the right moment. It is a tricky position for white, but white will focus on those light squares, as you made a point about. That's going to be how he defends his position.
I like the move g6, by the way, just keeping this knight at base.
Is the logic, though, of this rook reposition to avoid having to recapture with one of those pawns?
No, the logic is that he wants to
push.
He wants to push. He wants to advance the pawn d5, d6. He's intimating that, hey, look, on my agenda, you better take the pawn on d5 now. I'm going to play d6, queen c3, and I'm going to attack the pawn on e5. Now, the question is, if I push the pawn to d6, will it be an asset or a liability? On d5, it's firmly protected. On d6, it will need piece protection.
Yeah,
well, what about a pawn trade right now? How do you take back?
Always with the c pawn.
And then if it pushes?
Yeah, I deal with that.
Because you're going to unleash that bishop sitting on f8.
Agreed.
The pawn went to g6, not to fianchetto the bishop, but to make sure your knight couldn't come in. But after this move, that bishop on f8 will enter into the game on a very strong square, and that diagonal could be juicy.
But I am, like I said, I'm going to be playing for the light squares. I'm going to be jumping with my knight and hoping, like you, that my bishop will end up on c4, just as your bishop is aggressing my king. And if you play, just for argument's sake, I'm not saying it's a good move or a bad move. If you do try to go for that rook b2 incursion, I do have rook d2. So at the moment, this is a very double-edged affair, and both players are getting at that halfway mark. By the way, we have
made his choice. So off of that small inaccuracy of the rook placement, opts not to go for the pawn trade just yet. Going to slide that queen up.
c7.
Queen c7. Now the rook will find its way onto the d2 square that you talked about, a little prophylactic towards that b2.
And the other game, by the way, is proceeding in very level fashion. It looks very drawish at the moment, very balanced. So we will stay here for sure. But Magnus has made that capture, and he has pushed the pawn
advance
one square up. He's prepared to double his rooks on the B line. You're going to have to watch that, and at any moment, maybe a C3 hit. The bishop is going to enter the game, that dark squared bishop. I really like Black's position now. White is in pure defense mode with no sincere plan except that defensive setup you're talking about, Yasser. His pawns are just stifled.
Yeah, exactly.
The E and D pawns are not going anywhere. And the normal Rouleau plan, look at White's pieces.
No, the knight on G3, unfortunately, has no future on that square. All the advance points are well protected. If I'm in Gukesh's position, I'm bringing the knight back to E2. So first of all, to C3, I can blockade this pawn to begin with. But I'm really not thinking wholly defensively. I'm thinking I blockade, but I also want to jump to the B5 square. But at the moment, Gukesh is, okay, I think we do have a move.
We do.
He played queen C1. Okay, that does sidestep what you were saying, Maurice, about the doubling of the rooks. But now I'm not happy about that move.
Yeah, so he's also just saying to your bishop, don't go anywhere because the queen is lining up on that pawn. So maybe he will be able to play a move like
Rook C2.
C2, curtail the ambitions of this pawn, and maybe even get an Alekine's gun if he can sneak his rook up and get this position and really test that pawn. Why are you there? Because this knight could also come back eventually and attack the pawn as well. I'm not a fan, though, of the way his pieces are so jumbled at the moment. If he could get all those moves I just said, oh, wonderful. Just Magnus, don't do anything. But here we go.
Rook C8, intimating that even C3. Whoa! I was just about to say, you want to keep the pawn on H6 protected, so I was expecting King G7, because I really, really thought that Magnus's intention was to put his bishop on C5. Not true. What Magnus really wants to do now is play knight to E8 and knight to D6. With his knight on D6, it will be blockading this pass pawn. This bishop will be playing defensive work, and then Magnus will be saying, I've got a passer. What do you got? So knight E8 to D6, the blockade is on Magnus's agenda.
Now, Yasser,
4 minutes to 4 minutes.
James, our buddy Yasser here is one of the great chess explainers of all time. If you don't have his book on the Winning Chess series, then you're deficit in your library. Go out and get it right here, right now. But one thing he's mistaken on is his evaluation of chess books. and that's Nimzovich's My System. Nimzovich used to talk about overprotection. And this pawn right now, it is not attacked 4 times, but it is being defended 4 times. And Yasser even suggested, let's get a knight in the action to defend it 5 times so White doesn't even dream of attacking this pawn, because then all of Black's pieces will be released. Anyone can leave with the overprotection. Now, I know, Yasser, I'm chiding him, of course, but...
What are you, Nimzovich's agent? Get out of here.
But we do see that is a central element in the game right now, but there goes Magnus playing that move you mentioned to get the pawn out of danger on H5.
Yeah, you know, Christmas is right around the corner.
Right.
Go ahead and ship me.
I'm going to get him a first edition. You know?
Get him a first edition, exactly.
I don't think he quite understands what he's saying. By the way, the move H5 not only stops H4, H5 by White, but it does introduce this idea of Bishop H6. You know, you want to push that pawn. So you want to protect the promotion square. So that move, and look at this, everybody is coming. And again, I'm expecting the move knight to E8. And we see why the bishop is now on G7. The king would be lonely with everybody going queenside. Black's rook's on B4, rook on C8, queen on C7, bishop on A6. There's not that many defenders of Black's king.
White would likely have to move his queen off of this square and go to the A1 square. He would likely have to do this at some point. But Magnus now playing a hyper-aggressive move away from the pawns.
Again, he's thinking about Bishop
H6 is definitely his intention.
But check this out. Because this bishop on F1 is actually... it's not just hitting the pawn, it's actually blocking the pawn. Whoa. Is that a Peshki I'm looking at?
I thought he had to play queen a1 to defend the a-pawn, but Magnus now saying, I'm not interested in the pawn just yet. Let my queen eyeball your pawn on f2, and so your rook cannot leave. It's hard for white's knights to really figure out where they belong. I actually wanted this knight on g3 to just hop over to e3 square. Right, if it could somehow make this move, but the way it's set up now with the queen and the knight, and then a bishop will show up here, and then this knight will be in a lot of trouble. But then what is the purpose of this piece? You also now are unable to move the knight to e2 because the queen is ready to capture on f2. So this knight is actually frozen on the square, and now white's pieces themselves are frozen.
Well, it's getting worse and worse. I remember a fantastic game that Magnus won against Ali Reza Firouzja in a Tata Steel in Vaikanze with exactly this a type of play by Magnus. And there's even ideas of bishop h6, knight f2, and bishop e3 in the offing. Of course, we understand the rook at the moment, but you get the idea that this knight on g3 is not doing anything. Oh, I've got a really good move.
Make note, by the way, this rook was planning to come down to b1 as well and create more tactical ideas here.
Yeah, and I just realized that there's a worse situation in the offing. You move your queen, and how do you handle the move bishop f4? Just give me a move.
Knight again.
Give me a move.
I would have to play. I refuse to play knight h1, but what else?
I mean, I'm threatening to play bishop g3.
You're threatening to take the knight and exploit the fact that there's this pin on the diagonal. He's done it. This pin is nasty.
And the clock times.
As well, down to 122.
Ooh.
Being thoroughly outplayed ever since he played the move d5. Gukesh. Ever since. Magnus has used it as a linchpin for aggression, opening up the game with c6, and Gukesh has been suffering and now down on the clock as well.
Yeah, Magnus grabbing hold of that advantage and refusing to let go at this point. A reminder to everybody at home, it's 3 points at stake for a win here. Only 1 point apiece in the case of a draw. So the players would be effectively sacrificing a point if they end up in that draw. But at this point, maybe that's what Gukesh is hoping for.
And
while
there
Magnus,
it is. The knight is on h1. Sorry, the knight. This
Nimzovich.
Nimzovich again.
Like knights on h1.
No, but we don't. No, we definitely don't like this. And here comes Magnus looking to undermine the blockaders again. My system, Nimzovich has.
But I was about to say the move Rook b1 sure looked attractive.
But look at that last move. He played g3. That knight on h1 is crying right now. The other game, by the way, is dead even. We don't expect anything to happen there. But that knight on h1, it's in tears.
Pathetic. Just a pathetic knight. No ifs, ands, or buts about that knight. That knight is just crying. Magnus is completely taking over. Queen b4.
Take us 3 moves to get that knight unlocked, right?
And
that's assuming no moves from Magnus.
Exactly.
Removing our f3 knight to d2, then the pawn push. Now the knight can finally breathe a bit.
But that
this is resigned. This is just terrible now.
Terrible.
How do you defend your rook?
Exactly.
Actually, how do you physically defend your rook?
If I go queen e1, rook b1 hurts. Remember that bishop patrols the diagonal, so you can't even play rook c1. If I trade, give me your queen.
Well, we do have rook takes at least.
But then the question is...
He's got 9 seconds of misery remaining.
Magnus is winning. There it is. What a beautiful game by Magnus.
Wow.
Congratulations to our tournament leader. We're going to switch